So we've been talking a lot about how Joe Biden is in a slump, let's say, if I'm putting it kindly. The polls are not good for him at all. Trump is now defeating him in the average of polls and doing it pretty handily. And so now, look, it's even in the mainstream now, the conversation is beginning to be had. Hey, should this really be the guy? If democracy is on the line, if democracy is at stake and Trump is leading, shouldn't you, even any generic Democrat, wouldn't that be better against Trump if they fare a better chance, right? We don't want to roll the dice on barely alive Biden, do we? So now this has pierced the mainstream and they're having this conversation. But this is amazing. You're going to see how insular the Democratic Party is here with their blinders, right? Democratic Party officials. So Jake Tapper is going to ask the question and look at how this former Obama administration official reacted, how she was mortified when the idea was floated. Hey, maybe it shouldn't be Biden. Watch this.
I mean, your guy's losing to him.
By voters, right? And by polls.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what more Joe Biden can do to remind people what is at stake, right? That's the State of the Union theme, soul of democracy, constantly talking about battle for the soul of the country on the world stage. There is a responsibility for everybody else to also take the challenge just as seriously as the Democratic Party is in the White House right now.
That's quite an argument. Look, I don't know what else Biden can do. He's stressing it as much as possible. He's saying Trump's bad, Trump's bad, Trump's bad. And there's a responsibility on the people to hear that out and agree and react accordingly. No, quite the opposite. The argument you're making actually feeds Tapper's point, which is like, hey, even with all the whole like, hey, soul of the nation, democracy at stake, even with all that, there's a yawn and people are like, yeah, but we kind of hate how you're doing, bro. So the onus is on Biden. Look, it's not the idea that it's impossible, right, to act in a way that would get him reelected. That's not true. We already saw Biden had his highest approval rating ever. It was over 50%. It was either 52 or 54% when he cut $1,400 checks to the American people. This is early on in his time in office. He also had a high approval rating when he did the student loan debt reduction. He went up massively with young people when that happened. He also had a high approval rating when the Inflation Reduction Act got passed and a lot of those good provisions went into law. People reacted accordingly. They were like, oh, good. I like this. So the idea that it's impossible, no, it is possible, but he has to do the work. By the way, we're going to get to this more in a second, but like, what are you running on other than, hey, this guy's an authoritarian, he's really bad? Look, that's true, but we know that, and he's still leading, which means you need to do something and chart a new path. I mean, this whole thing where you just stress Bidenomics, that's not working. That's not working.
But do you ever think maybe we should have a new candidate?
No. A new candidate would not have the bully pulpit of the White House, right? Would not have a core of reporters that are covering his every move, which I would ask, as we discuss this here and just let slide that Trump is close enough in age to Biden, and also that Trump's speeches are largely incoherent and have been from the jump. But like somehow that narrative is the Biden narrative here. I do think that the benefit that he has is as we get closer to the day, and as you said, people pay attention, that the difference will become clear. But I'm hanging on to hope here.
She was disgusted at the, hey, maybe it shouldn't be Biden. She's like, no. This represents your average Democratic official. But this is so out of touch with your average voter. I mean, it's not even on the same planet as your average voter. Okay. So look, man, even the Associated Press at this point, Associated Press, if reelected in 2024, President Biden hopes to, quote, finish the job he started in his first term. But what exactly does that mean? This is the Associated Press. This is mainstream vanilla outlet. Here you go. Look at this.
President Biden's re-election pitch is simple. Let him, quote, finish the job. But what exactly does that mean? Unlike Trump, Biden hasn't formally released his plans as part of his campaign. Some say his second-term goals could look a lot like his first. This includes free community college, universal preschool, and putting a limit on childcare costs for most families. But Biden's plans are expensive, and he doesn't want to increase the deficit. So that means he's looking to raise taxes on the wealthy. And a ban on assault weapons remains out of reach as he continues to face a divided Congress. Between addressing gun violence, global warming, and 2 ongoing wars on 2 different continents, Biden will have much to face if he's able to secure a second term. Both Biden and Trump are likely to win their party nominations, meaning 2024 could be a rematch of 2020.
So in this little AP video, they have to speculate what Biden's going to do in his second term because Biden hasn't told us. By the way, never mind, he hasn't told us what he's going to do. He also hasn't ran on, hey, here's what I did. Like, I did a 15% corporate minimum tax rate. I did that. I massively reduced the drone war. I did gun reform. I did an executive order to do $15 minimum wage for every federal contractor and employee, which helps, 400,000 Americans. I did the PACT Act, which is healthcare for veterans exposed to toxic burn pits. My NLRB has been incredibly pro-labor. I did the CHIPS Act. I brought 800,000 manufacturing jobs here. Like, he doesn't talk about what he did. He's not talking about what he's doing. Even when he talks about Trump, which is hardly ever, but when he does, it's soul of the nation, democracy's at stake. He doesn't say, hey, 91 criminal charges, was just found liable of fraud, is running on suspending the Constitution, wants to invoke the Insurrection Act and declare martial law on day one to snuff out any protests against him. So he's not doing anything. So what he's in the midst of doing is, let me continue to arm and fund Israel as they wipe Gaza off the map. That's what he's doing. That's what he's in the process of doing. And gee, I wonder why his numbers are absolutely cratering with Muslim Americans and Arab Americans and young voters. To say nothing of he's gone down massively with Latino Americans. He's got all sorts of issues, man. And look at how obstinate, look at how obtuse and dense the Democratic official was. Hey, you think maybe you should replace Biden? I mean, a generic Democrat is up double digits on Trump, whereas Biden's down 3 points on Trump. She goes, no. Really? That's an offensive suggestion to you? God, they're in their ivory tower, man. Look, I was the guy defending Biden for a longer time than most because he went through a phase where he was getting negative press, but it was right after he did a bunch of good things, and nobody on the left was even saying, hey, yeah, these are actually some good things he did. So I thought he was a favorite. But since then, he blew it all. And by the way, the soul of the nation, democracy at stake, rings kind of hollow when the Florida Democratic Party just canceled the primary at the behest of Biden. So, Jesus Christ, man, they're so out of touch. Oh, they're so out of touch. This is terrifying. So the person who it looks like we're going to go into the election against Trump with is the most damaged, has the least upside, and is the least likely to win. It's honestly terrifying. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.